independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
If you jump the gun and go into a situation where you have a big spike, you're going to set yourself back. So as painful as it is to go by the careful guidelines of gradually phasing into a reopening, it's going to backfire.
That's the quadrillion-dollar question. How do we get to where we need to get to sustain a living and a country? How do we get back to that place? We don't want to jump the gun. But I think this is where we're looking at all the politicians saying, look, I know you guys are doing this on an individual basis. So all you politicians are doing on an individual basis based on 3 phases. Let's go back Thursday last week. Dr. Birx lays out some of the 3 phases that we need to look for so we can get back to some normal way of life.
So phase 1 begins with all vulnerable individuals, including those with comorbidities, continuing to shelter in place, and then ensuring that we continue to do 6 feet maximum physical distancing in public spaces, continuing to avoid large gatherings and all non-essential travel. We believe every employee should encourage work return in phases from 20% or 25% to 40% to 50%. And again, minimize all non-essential travel.
So that's phase 1. Kind of what we're doing now. But you've got to get there based on less and less people testing positive on a weekly basis. You got to go 2 weeks where you're, and they didn't really lay this out the way they should have last week. I've talked to several people that are completely confused. So I'm like, so wait a minute here. If you're in phase 1, is it week over week or is it day to day? So if the week before we had 1,000 that tested positive, this week we only had 800, but the last 2 days there's been a bit of a spike. Do we go back to phase 1 and start all over again? How about phase 2?
Phase 2. Again, you have to go through the criteria again of a continuation of another 14-day decline among those criterias that were in the gating. We're asking for all vulnerable individuals shelter in place. We increased social settings to be able to now have 50 individuals, and non-essential travel can resume. We did not put a timeline on any of the phases. We want the governors, with the data that they have, community by community, to be setting up those timelines.
All right. So timeline, you can't enter into it until you've had supposedly 2 weeks where you've dropped down. Okay. Interesting. All right. Now we get to phase 3. Phase 3. So we're allowing more and more people out, but still those people that are vulnerable, you guys are stuck in the house. Phase 3, though, this is where you want to be.
Phase 3 is essentially returning to our new normal, continuing the good hygiene practices, continuing the respect for spaces between individuals, because we know that we still have an issue with asymptomatic spread.
All right. That's continuing, but everything back to normal. And it's not normal. It's a new normal that's temporary. Even Trump said that last week. So that was Dr. Birx from last week. Fauci saying we can't jump the gun. At some point in time, I think what people are asking for is just say, look, you guys, for the next 90 days, this is how we're going to be living. It sucks. It's awful. But after those 90 days, regardless of what's happening at the other end, we're going to have to get back to work. People they feel like the never ending thing that is going on here with the maybe to next month or maybe these arbitrary dates. They don't want that. We're going to do it up until this point, and at that point in time, we're going to go. And it's frustrating. I get frustrated. You get frustrated. Everybody gets frustrated. Every state's different. The guidelines they laid out last week federally are here, but the states are going to be the ones who will handle everything, and all of them are going to handle something in a much different way. California and New York may take them months and months before you see phase 3. Places like Utah, Wyoming, here where I am in Arizona, we may see phase 3 in the next 30 days. You just don't know. It's up to that governor. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at us. You could text the program as well. Love hearing from every single one of you. Enjoyed my weekend of not having to watch any of this stuff. And I know it sounds weird because this is what I do. Yesterday, I did watch some of the talking head shows, but it was just I had a day where I hung out with the kids. We played, we goofed around, we played Lizards for 2 days, and I highly recommend trying to disconnect. And it is tough to disconnect from the biggest story in the world, in our history, in our lifetime. It is tough to disconnect. But man, just being outside for an hour, and I get outside on a daily basis, but in a situation where I'm not trying to rush through a workout, where I know I have to go back, it was nice. It was so nice. And I don't think people realize that you need that more than ever. Walking, getting out there, breathing some fresh air, enjoying what's available to us, which is, hey, get out, try to do something. If you don't, you're going to go mad. You're going to go crazy. I'm serious. I've seen some of my friends who I know are strong, friends I know have got it all together, over the last 4 weeks, slowly but surely slide into a serious depression. And you just can't let this thing do that to you. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. Pelosi over the weekend on Fox with Chris Wallace.
It has to be testing, it has to be tracing, contact tracing, it has to be treatment, and it has to be quarantine. It's part of something bigger as well to be done properly. But we're way late on it, and that is the failure. The president gets an F, a failure on the testing.
Yeah, the testing hasn't been great, and Trump's going to have to take some of that. That's on his step, right? That's right there. That's a step that you're on top of the steps, and it's coming up to you, and that is on you, Trump. Some of the testing has been awful. Some of the states have been not so great at testing. Other states have been much better at testing. But at the end of the day, if you're going to get all of last week when Pelosi came out and blamed him for the economy, I'm sorry that you're talking at your ass. That's not his fault, right? That's not. Can we be fair? You can blame Trump for the testing, or maybe you didn't take it serious at the beginning. You can blame him for all of those things. I've got zero problems with that, and we can have a debate about that. But when it comes to the economy falling apart at some point in time, Nancy, no, he did not blow the economy up. The economy was rocking and rolling before this thing showed up and landed right here.
The key that opens the door to the economy is testing. We haven't done it right. If, as Dr. Fauci says, if we proceed the right way, then we can do that. But we haven't.
No, we haven't tested the way we should. But how do we test? I mean, we have 350 million people here. How do we test everybody? You're just not going to do it. You're not going to test every single human being. So how do we get and I ask, it's funny because I've asked several doctors, what's the magic threshold? What's the magic number? Is it 50% of the population? Is it, everybody over the age of 16, everybody over the age of 21, everybody over the age of 25? What's the magic number? Is it 40%? Is it 30%? Right now, we're about 1.5%. That is not good enough. That I understand. But what is the magic number? Because if you think that we're going to wait around till every man, woman, and child has been tested, you're fooling yourself. It's just not going to happen. So there has to be a number at which we can say, okay, we feel good that we've tested enough. We've seen, first and foremost, how many people have had this already and never knew. You're seeing more and more of these people, they're going out and they're grabbing, they're testing randomly 1,000 or 1,500 people or 3,000 people and finding out for every one person that tests positive that they know of, there's another one or two that test positive. They had no idea they ever had it. But what is that magic number? And we've got to make it available as fast as possible. And that has been lacking. I will give you that one, Nancy. That has been lacking. Absolutely. But what also has been lacking is information. It's the question I get at least 50 times a day from people I work with to listeners. When is this thing going to be over? Couldn't tell you. That's up to your state. Every state is going to be different. I can tell you right now in California, it's not over anytime soon. You're looking at months, not weeks. In some states, you're starting to see it open up a little bit more. And you're looking at weeks, not months, but what happens when it pops back up again? How do you handle that? Which is another question that isn't being answered. That's why if I'm Dr. Fauci and Trump, I get on the same page and say, look, we can do this for the next 6 or 8 weeks. I will give you everything you want for the next 6 or 8 weeks. But then I want you to give me everything and say, look, at some point in time, America, you have to get back to work. At some point in time, we have to get out there and get the economy going, because another 2-3 months of this and the economy is going to look like something far worse than what we saw back in the Great Depression or that we read about. 1 in 2 people in L.A. County doesn't have a job right now. It's unemployed. Think about that for a second. You think it's going to get better or worse? We're over 22 million. By the end of this week, we'll be closer to 26 million or 27. By the end of this month, we'll be closing in on 30+ million Americans without a job. And we haven't even felt, I think, the worst part of it, which will be small business that realizes they're not going to be able to hang on, and that no matter what kind of money floats their way from a government bailout, it's not going to be enough to keep them and sustain them. And then you'll see another spike. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. My Pillow. Oh, thank you, My Pillow. I had such a good nap this weekend. You need that. You do. It refreshes the mind. Had my My Pillow nap. Relaxed a little bit. Needed that. Mike Lindell. Saw him yesterday. He was on Dave Rubin's show, talking about the things he's doing with My Pillow. They've switched everything over from their production lines to start making PPEs for the mask and everything for all of our first responders. But that means they've got to get everything out of the warehouses, and that's where you get a benefit. Right now, you get a BOGO. Buy one, get one free on everything. The My Pillows, the towels, the sheets, the roll and go anywhere pillows, the duvet covers, everything. You buy one, you get one free. You get a 10-year warranty and a 60-day money-back guarantee. Everything's made in the United States of America. If you go to MyPillow.com, there's a radio listener special page. Use the promo code Benson. When you do, at checkout, if you buy his book, so you pre-order his book, it's a great book. I've got it. It's a really neat cover, too. But it's a great story about a guy who essentially was an addict and falling apart. His life is going nowhere. Flash forward a decade, and to see what has happened in his life, you're like, whoa. When you pre-order his book, they'll ship everything for free. Plus, he gives you a $25 gift card towards your next purchase. MyPillow.com, promo code Benson. MyPillow.com, promo code Benson. Chad Benson Show.
No need to fear. We promise we won't give you a noogie and make you cry Russia, Russia, Russia.
Fui the fearless leader.
Fui!
Fui, and double fui.
What is your language? It is a family show, remember?
Fui to family too.
Nostrovia. This is Chad Benson.
Now you can't always get what you want. Now you can't always get what you want.
That was the One World thing. They raised $128 million, give or take. So you had the Stones, you had Elton John.
On my mind, I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing.
I'm too tired. What was that? Listen to that again.
On my mind, I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I'm too tantin'. That did not sound like I'm still standing. I'm till tandin'. Chad's not very nice. He's trying. He's not doing a good job. The Stones were okay. I mean, all things considered, if you listen to the Stones, they sounded, because they weren't the same room. They're all different places. But Elton's only got him, right? And he tilt-handed. Sound like, what's his name, Eddie Murphy, when he did that? Buckwheat? Remember that? So he's going to say, I can't believe you brought that up. That's really rude, Chad. Well, he tilt-handed. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at us. Yeah, they raised a bunch of money for stuff to go to. I always wonder, like, how, so you go and you pledge money. Where exactly does it go? How does it get there? When do these people see, it's like, for me, like last week, we had our buddies on from, Boomer Naturals, and they came on and they did a little thing with us to talk about their masks. They've already mailed out the masks they're sending out 1,000 masks that are reusable for 30 days. You can wash them. They're 92% protective. And that's another one of the things, too. The mask thing is just, it boggles. Do you wear one? Don't you wear one? What am I wearing one for? Does it stop anything? Well, it's to stop you from giving it to somebody if you have it. So I'm like, wait. So if I was to have it, it won't stop me from getting it, right? The mask isn't going to stop anything from getting in, but it's to stop it from getting out. And the gloves, yes, use the gloves, but then don't use the gloves unless you change your gloves every time, because the gloves it'll just stay on the gloves. It's all confusing, and that's been part of the problem here. I mean, it's not as confusing as what Elton John just did.
On my mind, I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing.
I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Who still standing? Who still standing? Sounds like my little brother. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. We've got some more of those awesome songs later. And today's the great smokeout. So Willie Nelson and you got Snoop Dogg. I don't know if they're all getting together and doing something. He saw Come and Toke It variety show today with Willie Nelson. That'll be funny. Come and toke it, man. He's 86, still kicking. So they're going to have artists, chefs, comedians, educators for 4 hours and 20 minutes of the cannabis-centric entertainment hosted by Willie himself. Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
In the sense you've got two populist leaders in Boris Johnson and Donald Trump, and all the tricks that they used to become popular and to win elections and to lead their countries are now being tested in a very different way. It's not about partisan politics anymore. It's about plain war crisis leadership. And it's a very different thing. And what I've noticed with both Boris Johnson and with Donald Trump is an apparent inability to segue into being war leaders.
Yeah. Some people are that way. Some people are the leaders you need at the time you need them. You go back, and I love history. If you go and see what took place before Winston Churchill became the prime minister, against a lot of people's wishes, he became the prime minister. He led them through the war. At the height of his popularity, when they had a vote, he was voted out because he was seen as a person, as a wartime leader, as a crisis leader, not a good time leader, but a person who in crisis is somebody you turn to. Trump has had more than a few mistakes. Everybody's going to. Don't care who you are. I can guarantee you, in a different dimension, right now, if Hillary Clinton was president, the Republicans would be hammering her for the testing going the way it is, or for going too early or going too late when it came to closing things down, or there would be something, because that's what we do. We find, especially in the world of politics, something we can just hammer down on. And Piers Morgan is right. Right now, both Boris Johnson and Trump are having some serious issues. And he talks, look, this right here is the briefings. And right now, one of the things trending on Twitter is, don't show Trump's briefings. There was one last week, Thursday, thought it was it was his best briefing. And the entire time on this entire crazy, insane coronavirus thing, since the day it popped up till now, it was his best moment. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. Since then, and before then, it's been chaotic at best.
And Donald Trump in particular, I consider him to be a friend. But I've been watching these daily briefings with mounting horror because this is not what the president should be doing. The president of the United States right now is an incredibly important person in the world, and not least to Americans who are dying in their tens of thousands. And all that's required from the president is they've got to be calm, they've got to show authority, they have to be honest, they have to be accurate, entirely factual with what they're telling the people, and they have to have an ability to show empathy.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I have been very critical of Trump with his empathy. I don't think he shows empathy. I don't think he does. Like a lot of people think he just doesn't care. No, I think he cares. He's just not good at showing it. I could be wrong, right? And you could be wrong. Everything is about the economy is the way that a lot of people see. I want you guys to understand from a different viewpoint. Everything is about the economy is the way that everybody thinks about Trump. All he cares about is getting people back to work, the Dow Jones and all that. I don't think that's as real as it's made out to be, but he definitely comes across as not being very empathetic. Some people are like that. A lot of people are like that. Not very empathetic. They don't feel any empathy. They don't feel there's not that emotion. Some people on the other side come across as too empathetic, right? You could accuse Obama of being very empathetic, over empathetic at times. Paralysis by analysis. Deep thoughts. But there was no gut at times to do certain things. Trump comes across at times as very much a, black and white, kind of that old gruff dude. Everybody's got one in their family. It's your great uncle. It's your grandpa. Doesn't mean they don't care. That's just not the way that they come across. And it's tough because as a politician, you have to walk both lines, right? You got to straddle both areas. You've got to care about the people. But you've got to care about the economy and the people in the economy. Because coming out of this, we're going to need somebody who's going to help us take us back to where we were. And we know it's going to take a while. It's a very interesting thing. You have to have both. Some people do it really well. Some people are one. And, you find you look at Newsom in California, who everybody feels all he cares about is that he doesn't care if everybody's unemployed. I've said once we started to shut this thing down, at some point in time, people are going to start to push back. People are going to start to get angry. They're going to start to push back, and they're starting to do that. You're seeing protests everywhere, and that's only going to grow. Because there are people out there, some of which are out there fighting because they feel like their rights are being taken away from and everybody else is a sheeple, and there's a point to that. And some because they're looking at their livelihoods and it's going up in flames and they have no through no fault of their own, by the way. Not because they're bad business people, although some may be, but because this has thrown them a curveball which they're never going to be able to hit. They're at the plate with no bat and no chance to save themselves. And that's frustrating. So you've got some people who look at somebody who's really empathetic and thinks you're too emotional. You've got other people on the other side who say you're too cold. But as a leader, you've got to be able to walk both lines. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at us. With all that going on, and that is true, Bill Maher is right. Yeah, that's right. Bill Maher's right. I like Bill Maher. I know a lot of you don't like him. I know a lot of you can't stand him. But he takes shots at everybody, which I think we need to. I try to take shots at everybody. If Trump does something wrong, I say Trump does something wrong. If Trump does something right, I'll say he's done something right. From the moment this has begun, especially CNN, with the Chris Cuomo crap, to everything, they've got the counter up there and how many have it, how many have died. It's like we're watching one of those Jerry Lewis telethons and the thing's getting ready to tick, and it's been insane. And the only time you never hear them say, oh yeah, I had it and I felt it was the sniffles and I moved on with my life. It's always the worst case scenario. And there's a reason for that.
So look, if this insanity happens again, news sources have to rein it in. Everyone knows Corona is no walk in the park because you literally can't walk in the park. But at some point, the daily drumbeat of depression and terror veers into panic porn. Enough with the life will never be the same headlines. Some are making comparisons to the apocalypse. The apocalypse? Really? Because most of us are sitting at home smoking delivery weed and binge watching a show about a gay zookeeper.
He's right. He's absolutely right. And it's like, even the worst case scenarios, 98% of us are going to survive this. Even if everybody got it, which would be awful, 98% of us are going to come through the other side and survive this.
Another recent Times headline was, "It's terrifying. Millions more out of work." What it's terrifying doing in a headline? Granted, it's a quote, but who are they quoting? Trump? Fauci? Stephen King? No, they're quoting an event planner in North Hollywood. How about this? Just tell me millions are out of work without the flashlight under the chin, and I'll decide how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's not what it's about anymore. It's not what it's about. If it bleeds, it leads. They're fighting New York Times, LA Times, every single newspaper, and the newspaper industry is getting clobbered. There are very few newspapers that are going to survive this. There really isn't any. LA Times, New York Times will probably come through this thing somewhat okay. But I've got several friends in the newspaper industry who have been blown out or now working on a per-click basis. That they're only getting paid based on the clicks and the number of clicks they get. So what do? You make it good.
The media also seems obsessed with finding young people who've died of COVID-19. The Washington Post says there's 759 under 50 years old. Horrible, of course. Then I looked up how many under 50 died of the flu last year. Almost 3,000. So all this misery from distancing did some good. Can I be happy about that?
No, you can't. You're not allowed to. And it's the funniest thing. And Bill Maher's right. I saw a great meme yesterday about a guy who got run over by a steamroller. Obviously, it's fake. And then they asked, did he die from the coronavirus? Like, no. Well, we don't care. And that's kind of what it is. Heart attacks and strokes are down. Why? Because less are happening? No, because people are afraid to bother their doctor. Are you kidding me? CNN's putting on things like in memory of the people we've lost during the coronavirus. Are you kidding me? 1,700 people a day die from heart disease, 1,600 from cancer. And you're putting up in memory of? Are we going to have a plaque somewhere? Is that going to happen? I feel like it is. And when we reopen, are we going to make it a national holiday?
Death is terrible, of course, no matter how it comes. I'm against it, and I don't care who knows it. But giving a proper perspective isn't a cover-up of the truth. It is the truth. Sudden, dramatic deaths like plane crashes, shark attacks, tornadoes, mass shootings, terrorism, awful as they are, kill far less than seasonal flu or even hospital-acquired infections may very well kill more than coronavirus. 99,000 of them last year. 50,000 die of nephritis every year. I don't even know what that is.
But it doesn't matter because it's not the coronavirus. And every time somebody dies now, it's because of the coronavirus, or there has to be headlines. Was not a part of the coronavirus, did not die from that, was hit by bus. Whatever. I mean, it's bizarre. But that's what it is. Panic porn. Because it elicits emotion from you, you pay more attention to it, and then you stir in your brain and in your head, and now being physically isolated, it makes it so that rabbit hole is easier to go down, and that you think that it's a death sentence. There are people out there who believe that this is a death sentence. It is not a death sentence. For most people, it is no more than a cold or a bit of a flu. Will some suffer from it? Yes. 80,000 people died from the flu. But it's not the same. No, it's not the same. It's different. But most people, half of them, will never even know they had it. Some will have aches and pains. Some will have a cough. Some will have a fever. Some will have all three. Some will make it to the point where they have to go to the hospital, but they never get on the respirator, and some will. But the whole thought process of this is a death sentence is put out there because 24/7 on the news, all you hear is coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. And yeah, it is the biggest story. But the way that the media, and people say, you're the media. No, their news. I'm a talking head. Totally different. Totally different things. And I want to do more journalistic, give you the facts and reality as opposed to what they're trying to do, which is get you to pay attention by terrifying you. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at me and text the program as well. Love hearing from every single one of you. Happy Monday, Chad Benson Show.
Take a fake news break. Check out the really important news of the day at our website, ChadBensonShow.com. Once there, click on Chad's free podcast and get real. The Chad Benson Show, where truth and the American way live. Print free.
Global Citizen says Saturday's 8-hour One World Together at Home live concert event raised just shy of $128 million to fight the COVID-19 pandemic. All of the performances were heartfelt, but the Rolling Stones among the most buzzed about. Smile. Same for Lady Gaga's solo performance of Smile and Lizzo's take on the Sam Cooke classic, A Change Is Gonna Come.
Long time coming.
More than 70 artists in all performed.
Yeah, that's right. More than 70 did. So far, my favorite is this one.
On my mind, I'm still standing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm still standing.
I'm still standing. I'm still standing. I'm still standing. How about Paul McCartney?
Monday's child learns to tie his bootlace. See how they run.
Makes you think about the Beatles, right? Like, wow, you're awful. Ringo's just always been but he still sounds like Ringo. And when you hear that, you're like, and he's playing like some sort of Casio. Back in the day when you go into the mall, there's a guy standing out there, right, with a suit and tie on, playing his Casio. And you're like, oh, that looks awful. I don't ever want your job. Lady Gaga did good.
Maybe ever so near, that's the time you must keep on trying. Smile, what's the use of crying?
Taylor Swift.
You'll get better soon, 'cause you have to.
She should write a song about how it broke her heart. It broke my heart. Some people are coping in different ways. Case in point, a mom who's, well, she's just over it.
How much could you clean? How much could you cook? How much could you organize? We got another 30 days of this. Wash your fucking hands. Stay the home. Don't go out in a spacesuit thinking that you're going to be okay, because you're not. I don't want to do this no more. I'm walking over toys like I'm a fucking Avenger, okay? I got more Lego marks on my feet embedded, okay? Monster truck tracks up my back. It looks like what I've been through. It looks like what the I've been through. I'm done.
She's not done.
At night, I feel like I'm the Hulk going up the stairs carrying the towels again. 75 towels a day. What else do you do? Everybody's showering like crazy. They got nothing else to do. They're teenagers. They walk out. We are losing it, people. I have no more soap. How many times could you wash your body? What else are you going to do in this house before you lose it, okay? Save your spacesuit. Walk on the moon next year. Not now. Not now. Stay the home. Wash your hands. Wash your hands.
Jack, I keep telling Jack, I'm not your maid. You just take your clothes off and right wherever it is. Like, what are you doing? Like, there's Nerf bullets everywhere. I'm like, just everywhere. You'll open up the refrigerator and it's like, why is there a Nerf bullet in the refrigerator? Like, what were you shooting? What was going on in the refrigerator? What kind of recon were you doing with your Nerf bullets? 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at me and text the program. Everybody's going through it right now. That's the beauty of this thing, though. We're all in it together, kids. Like it or not. Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
If you jump the gun and go into a situation where you have a big spike, you're going to set yourself back. So as painful as it is to go by the careful guidelines of gradually phasing into a reopening, it's going to backfire.
How long do we wait? That is the $1 trillion question. How long do we wait? People want to get back to work. People want to get out there. Every governor, by the way, wants to get out there. Right or left, red or blue, progressive or conservative, they all want to get out there and working. But how long is it going to take? And that's a question that nobody seems to have an answer for. Now, each state is going to handle their own thing. Doesn't matter where you live. Your governor is going to handle its own thing. Meaning, Gavin Newsom in California is going to do its own thing. They know exactly what it is. They know exactly how it's going to play out as far as what their guidelines and parameters are before they open up stuff, what they want to see happen. Arizona, here I am. Ducey's going to be a little bit different. Asa Hutchinson, Arkansas, going to be a little bit different. People across the country are going to see things play out differently because some states aren't going to be as affected as some of these other states. California has done a pretty damn good job when you think about it. You got 40 million people living there. New York, struggling. Cuomo's got a different thing that he's facing compared to other parts of the country. Wyoming, Utah, not been that bad. Florida over the weekend, they opened up the beaches. People flocked to the beaches. People wanted to get out and do stuff. The reality is the $1 trillion question of when isn't going to be answered by the president the way that I think a lot of people would like it. You just tell everybody you got to do it. Doesn't work that way. It doesn't. It's going to be based on a lot of different things. Testing is one, and the testing has been not as good as it should have been. Let's be really honest here. It hasn't been as good as it should have been. It has been kind of sketchy at best in some places. Even though we've tested more than anybody else, doesn't mean that the tests have been great. Doesn't mean that the testing's been great. We've tested about 1.5% to 2% of our entire population. That isn't great. Then you've got the other test, the antibody test. Ooh, that's different, right? We're going to talk about that in a little bit. But you've got testing that we need to have done. Then on the other side, you've got people that feel like, you know what, testing or not, we need to get back out there. Because otherwise the economy is going to fall apart and nobody's going to have anything left on the other side of it. And there's going to be 4 companies left and everybody's going to be unemployed. And what it looks like on the other side is far worse than what we're going through now. There's an argument for that as well. I've talked to several small businesses that have said, I can't do it anymore. Little place that we used to go, not too far from my house, get ice cream, they're closed. So due to the coronavirus, we've decided to go out of business. I was like, man, that's awful. That is awful. You're going to see more and more of that. And the longer this goes, the more you're going to see of that. And I don't think we've felt the small business pain the way that we're going to feel it when you look at these unemployment numbers that are growing. But I think even with the help that the government's giving, and they're doing more of it, you know, as of today, they're doing more of it. The reality is it's still in a situation where no matter how much they help, without an end date in sight, these businesses can only hang on for so long. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at us. That one thing that we were talking about, the antibody test, and that's very interesting to see the way that this thing's going to play itself out, because everybody's like, okay, so what? So we're testing for what? What are we testing for again? This isn't to see if you have it, or is it to see that you did have it? What is it?
An antibody test is not saying whether you have the virus now. It's saying whether you were exposed, infected, and likely recovered from the infection.
Yeah. And for some people, they'll get exposed a ton of times. Like everybody, you've got to assume that everybody in the country, the 320 to 50 million people that live here, will be exposed to it. And even their worst case scenario, 50 million people are going to get it. 280 to 300 million people would be exposed but never get it for whatever reason. They would build up antibodies. Now, with those antibodies, what exactly does it do for you? That's the interesting thing. But we need tests, and we need them to be accurate.
The antibody testing for evidence of past infection, we don't know the accuracy of those tests, whether they can have false positives. We don't know how often to retest someone, whether it should be 14 days, because that's the thought incubation period of this coronavirus.
That's Dr. Jen Ashton there. And okay, so we're not quite sure. So how often we test? I mean, we can't test the entire country. About 2%, 1.5% to 2% is where we're at now. So if we can't test the entire country on whether or not you even have it, what's to make you think that you're going to go get tested after I mean, how many times are you going to do it? And why can't we have an easier test at home? But people are worried about, well, okay, let's say we have a test at home for the coronavirus or a test at home for the antibodies. How good is the test?
The assumption that with the tests that are out there, if you have an antibody positivity, you're good to go, unless that test has been validated and you can show there's a correlation between the antibody and protection. It is an assumption to say that this is something that we can work with.
Meaning that the whole thought process is that the feeling is if you were to have this and recover from it, that you would buy some form of immunity over X amount of months, years. For some things you get in life, you get the chicken pox, and rarely you're ever going to have the chicken pox ever again. The good news is when you get older, you could have shingles. But that would be the hope, is that you would build up some sort of immunity to this, meaning you are going to be able to go out and do more things without the worry of getting it. But I don't know how real that is. And because like a lot of these things, and the frustration I hear also from a ton of people when it comes to this itself, is the fact that every day you seem to get a brand new thing that you're supposed to do that's supposed to help you, while at the same time something that was supposed to help you that you were doing now really doesn't do enough. You see 10 different reports, they're going to give you 10 different things you should do. Rubber gloves? Well, not really, because they don't really, do anything. You have to change them out every time and wash them and stuff. And are you doing that? Okay, fine. What about a mask? Well, the mask helps, but it doesn't really help because it doesn't stop anything, but it doesn't hurt. Okay, that's fine. Clothes. Yeah, take your clothes off. No, clothes are fine. What about food? No food. Well, yeah, food. It's confusing. And we're all getting different ideas throwing at us, which drives us crazy. I mean, you can go online right now and you could type in coronavirus symptoms. So it's like, it's not the flu, but it does everything the flu does. You're like, oh, okay. So it's not the flu, but it does everything that flu does. So you've got aches and pains, and you got a fever, and you've got chills, and but don't look for that to be, because not everybody's, that's the frustration that people have. We're all wanting one simple thing. Hey, guess what? Don't sneeze. Even though that's not a sign, you could spread it. Wear a mask because it'll stop it if you do have it. If you do have it, wear gloves. Don't wear. I don't know. I don't know. And that's the frustrating thing for everybody. I think the best thing you can do is socially distance. And that's kind of what, at the end of the day, that's kind of what it's all about. Is our social distances. Well, we don't really know how this thing works. We know that it can stay in the in the air for a little bit of time, and maybe it can stay here on plastic for X amount of hours, and this thing over here it could stay on for days. And the best thing to do is just never leave your house, unless you have to leave your house. And when you can't see it, everybody becomes somebody who could be a carrier. And with the freak out in the world that we live in today, and the panic porn, as people call it, with the television and the news media, you just think that nobody's walking around with a giant, huge A on their chest, right? Or a big C that says carrier coronavirus. Nobody's doing that. So we don't know. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You could tweet at me. You could text the program as well. Lightstream, here to help. You're looking around, you got tons of credit card. How about this? You got all that credit card debt. How about one easy payment with rates as low as 5.95% APR with auto pay? That is so much lower than the national average credit card rate, over a 19% APR. My friends right over there at Lightstream can help you with that. There's no fees. Application is quick and easy. It's 100% online. You can even get your money as early as the same day you apply. You can quickly roll balances over from multiple cards into one single monthly loan payment. What's that do for you? Well, it saves you hundreds, if not thousands of dollars a year. And when we're trying to get into a situation where we're trying to save money, yeah, isn't that a good thing to do? I think so. And just for being my listener, you get a special interest rate discount where you can save even more. The only way to get this discount is to go to lightstream.com/Benson. That's LIGHTSTREAM.com/Benson. Subject to credit approval. Rate includes 0.50% auto pay discount. Terms and conditions apply. Offers subject to change without notice. Visit lightstream.com/Benson for more information. Chad Benson Show.
If you're part of the politically exhausted majority, don't fear. Your time to be validated and rejuvenated is here. Wake up. It's the Chad Benson Show.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition. Liftoff.
Now it's time to find out what's trending. What's trending? Yeah, what does that mean? I mean something, right? Like it's trending on the old internet. What's trending? A lot of stuff's trending. Let's take a look. It's Earth Day. 50 years old. Earth Day's 50. Happy birthday, Earth. Oh, Earth's older than that? But it's birthday. Oh, no. Okay, it's totally different. 420. 420 today. You know what that means? It's 420? Yeah. No, it doesn't mean. Well, it does mean that, but I'm not going to. No, it's just the weed. You shouldn't go there with that. The Last Dance, the docuseries, Michael Jordan had a huge search over the last 24 hours. Coronavirus tips, another 15 ways to make yourself safe. Nova Scotia, there was a shooting there. For those of you who don't understand, there was a shooting in a small town in Nova Scotia. 16 people were killed. 12-hour rampage in Canada. And barely a blip because coronavirus. Neiman Marcus is trending because they're going to file for bankruptcy as early as this week. Head on over to Twitter. Also have Neiman Marcus trending over there. Stoners, I'll let you go and figure out what that's all about because it's 420. 420 is also Trump coronavirus test failure. 420 blaze it. Monday mood. I'm in a Monday mood. Had Friday off. It was awesome. I said to the guys last week, so I do my national show and then I do another show. I said to the guys last week, I said, so my local show, we're all in the same room, but my national show is different. Anthony does it out of his home office, and Kara's out there in Arlington, Virginia, and Phil's out there, and I do it here in Arizona, so we don't really see. But my other show, we're all together, and I said, hey guys, let's do something fun. So we have Spirit Week this week. Because we need to. There's not a lot of people here at work. Normally I have anywhere between 70, about 90 people here. Now, this morning, there was like 5 people in the office. By the afternoon, there were maybe 10 of us. So I said, we need to do something. So I wore my bathrobe and my pajamas into work. That's what I wore today. I'm like, I could get used to this all the time. Very comfortable. Very, very comfortable. I could get used to that. That's what's trending. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from you. The whole antibody thing is still very interesting because people are trying to figure out if you can survive this after you're immune to it. Can you survive it in the world where you can go out and do pretty much anything because you don't have to worry about it coming and getting you and attacking you again? And because I think that's a lot. I think there's a lot of people out there who would like to think, you know what, I'm willing to just take the risk and get it and hope that I survive it, which 98% of the people who will survive it, and get on with my life. But nobody's really sure.
There's an assumption, a reasonable assumption, that when you have an antibody that you are protected against reinfection. But that has not been proven for this particular virus.
And they're all about proving things. And it's a very fair assumption that once you get it, the chances of you being reinfected with it are not really big. Not really. Like, you're not going to have to worry too much about it. And I think a lot of people are hoping that they can get the antibodies test, and they're praying, oh, my God, I hope I've already had it. Because once I've already had it, that means the chances of me getting it are slim to none. And if that's true, then I can go on about my life. And almost, I talked to Governor Ducey last week. He says it's like having the golden ticket for some people, being able to do certain things where you have a golden ticket. I can go certain places. I can do certain things because I don't have to worry about reinfection. Not quite proved out yet. We'll see. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. It's the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
That you should have warned them the virus was spreading like wildfire through the month of February instead of holding rallies with thousands of people. Why did you wait so long to warn them?
Who are you with?
And why did you not have social distancing until March 16th?
Who are you with?
I'm Weijia Jiang with CBS News. Not Americans who are also
nice and
from
easy.
China.
Nice and easy. Just relax. We cut it off. People were amazed. These gentlemen, everybody was amazed that I did it. We had 21 people in a room. Everybody was against it but me.
Yeah, these pressers, they get a little crazy at times. Trump likes to use them. I don't know if they're good or not. He's reaching his people. He doesn't have rallies anymore. It's interesting. The travel ban. It's a perfect example of how polarized politically we are. Remember the travel ban to China? And then everybody came and said, oh, he's a xenophobe and he's racist. And then they're like, well, maybe he should have done it sooner. It doesn't matter who's in office. You're going to get blamed for it. You're going to get very little credit if things go right. And you get a lot of blame. And it doesn't matter if it's somebody on the right or on the left. If Hillary's in charge of this, they'd be coming after her. Maybe not the media, but the right would be more so than you would think. Oh, no, if she would have done all the same things. No, that's not the way we work. It's not. We're so politically polarized now. We take every opportunity to say, if you did something wrong, we're going to point it out all day, no matter how many things you did right.
Dr. Fauci said, had I not done that, perhaps tens of thousands, and maybe much more than that, would have died. I was very early.
By the way, when you issued the ban, the virus was already here.
How many cases of virus were in the United States when I issued the ban? Do you know the number? How many people died in the United States? And yet I closed up the country, and I believe there were no deaths, 0 deaths at the time I closed up the country. Nobody was there. And you should say thank you very much for good judgment.
Is he right? I think when he did close it, there were very little cases, but it was already here. And now, and by the way, here's the other thing. California still believes that not only was it here earlier than was first being reported, they're thinking it may have arrived as early as late last year. Oh, that's interesting. It's a virus. Nobody's wearing a T-shirt. I don't know how many times. Nobody's wearing a T-shirt that's a red T-shirt that says coronavirus carrier. Nobody's doing that. Oh, he's got a big C on. Stay away. Oh, she's got a C on. Stay away from them. Nobody's doing that. That's why we've got this thing in our heads no matter where we go. Every handle we touch, every door we go through, every piece of food that we pick up at the grocery store. Who touched this before me? Because you can't see it. And that frustrates people. And you have every right to be frustrated. Could Trump have done more? I think he didn't take it as seriously as he should at certain times. Not going to lie to you. I feel that way. I still feel that way. He could have done better in certain places. In saying that, it doesn't matter. If it was already here, it was still probably going to spread. And as long as people say, well, it's come from Europe. Well, did it really come from Europe? Meaning, did people fly from, Wuhan to Frankfurt to here? We know this didn't originate in Europe. So just because the plane came from Europe doesn't mean it came from Europe. But we're trying to be politically correct in a time where, quite frankly, we don't need political correctness. We need to just be honest about this thing. We do. It's nasty. It's ugly. It's a horrible situation that has dealt this globe, not just us, the entire globe, a setback that is going to take for some countries 5+ years and more to recover. And for other countries, they'll recover quicker, but life is going to be a little bit different. Right now, what do we have going on? We have issues, protests everywhere. People are pissed off and upset. They're inside of their homes. They feel like they don't know what's going on. And some people are upset because they feel like, you know what? You guys are using this opportunity to grab more of our freedoms.
Fire Fauci! Fire Fauci! Fire Fauci! Fire Fauci! Fire Fauci!
Fire Fauci. Why? Because you don't like what he's saying? People are upset and they're pissed.
We got to buy food. We got to go to work. We got to provide for our families.
Media is the cancer.
People are going to die. They die no matter what.
Not need an immunity certificate. Not need a test to prove that we're not vectors of disease and out walking around.
Right now, we do not live in a free country. We have to wait for permission from the government at many levels to be able to do something. Go out of the house, go shopping, gather in groups of 10 or more.
I need a haircut.
You need a haircut. People, she needs a haircut. It's silly. No, people are going nuts. They are. And they feel like they need permission, like we're being adulted. And it's not about you. I mean, that's the beauty of our freedoms is they're only as good as we take them. Meaning, look, I don't want to impede on anybody else. I wouldn't want to get anybody else sick. Most of the people I've talked to, you get some deniers out there. They're just nuts. But most of the people I talk to all feel the same way. They're willing to take the risk. And the worst thing that they think could happen is getting somebody else sick, especially somebody they love or know, or somebody's in a compromised situation as far as their immunity, they're older, whatever it is. They're not worried about themselves. People are angry. They're upset. And when you don't have an answer for them and it feels like things are, getting worse, you've got several things at play here with these protesters. It's not just, they're upset about their freedoms. No, let me tell you something. You need people like that.
We want to take our lives back. One thing that we've learned through this is that this is going to be the new normal. COVID-19 is going to be in our lives for at least the next year until there's a vaccine. And we need to figure out a way to get back to as normal of a life as possible while this plays out in the background. The solution is not to lock us into our homes.
No. People want answers. Answers that they can't give right now. It's a novel virus. And Trump, everybody's going to come out and blame this all on Trump. I get that. Look, politics is about blaming.
You see people picketing a little bit, and they want to get out. They want to get out and get back with their lives, and that's good. But they have learned a lot. They've learned about distancing.
Yeah, they've learned a lot. Distancing, being smart about things.
I wouldn't exaggerate the protest across the country. There are some in some places, largely where there's a Democratic governor, but I think of it largely as a distraction, and the president's embrace of it as a distraction from the fact that he has not appropriately done testing.
That's where you're wrong. It's growing. We're weeks into this thing. Imagine telling people you got in there 6 or 8 weeks of sheltering in place, not going to work, being told where you can go and how you can go there, or you're going to get fined, potentially arrested. As we all know, see Edward Snowden, see the Patriot Act, see what happens when your rights slowly diminish because you want this kind of pseudo bizarre feeling of safety. See what takes place. On top of that, you've got the other side of it, which are people are making serious decisions in the coming days and weeks about what's going to happen to their lives. They're not paying their mortgages. They're waiting in line to get food. People who've done nothing wrong and have tried to live the life the right way are waiting in line to get food because their livelihood has been taken away. Their businesses are going under. And they're looking around saying, there's nothing wrong with me. I should be able to go out and do something. I need to work. I need to get back out there. There's a psyche to that. I've said from day one, once they started clamping down, everybody has a breaking point. Everybody does. For some, that breaking point may be a day. For most, though, it's weeks and months. But at some point in time, that breaking point is going to hit. And how do we handle mass unrest should that ever come? How do we do that at that point in time? We're going to declare martial law? We're going to start arresting people who are out gathering under their rights constitutionally to protest? There's a lot of things that's going to happen over the next coming several weeks because each state's going to be different. And I'm telling you guys, on top of all of that, New York is going to see a massive shift in whether or not people want to live there. They were already starting to see it because of high taxes. California is the same. Now they're going to start look at it in a much different way. Like maybe there's better opportunities for me elsewhere that are lower taxes and a little bit more freedom. And I don't go to, it's like people always say to me, God, you moved to Arizona from California. Don't you miss the beach? I'm like, I never went to the beach. And the beach is nice, but I just never went to the beach. But you're not going to go to the theater if you live in New York and you go somewhere else. Most people don't go to the theater. Most people don't go to Broadway. Oh, yeah. I went to the beach once every 5 years. That's it. Now I would go down and have a lunch at the end of the pier. Maybe fish once in a great while. I can fish anywhere. I just never went to the beach. They're always talking about the things you're going to miss. Well, yeah, most of those people never did those things. And I think there's going to be a real look into a lot of this. It's like, do I really want to live in a place like this when I can go elsewhere? Have a little bit more freedom, pay less taxes, move out instead of up. I think so. I think it's going to happen more than people realize. But what happens in the coming weeks and potentially months in certain states when people finally reach their boiling point? And now, while we're physically distanced, we are socially as close as ever. You get a situation where people can get online, bitch, whine, moan, and in some cases have real things to be angry about. But you stoke that up with pent-up frustration and anger and desperation because you see your livelihood and the potential of you losing everything. That's a recipe for true unrest. And with no end in sight, the 100 will become 200, the 200 will become 400, the 400 will become 800, and so on. 3-823-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program. Love hearing from each and every one of you. Happy Monday, Chad Benson Show.
Don't let the Washington Beltway strangle you. This is where the exhausted majority comes to refuel, realign, and reevaluate. This is Chad Benson.
That's a lot of the work that the health researchers at Carnegie Mellon have been doing to make sure that the data that's coming from the survey is high quality and that it correlates with what hospitals are seeing on the ground.
Facebook trying to get into the data survey area when it comes to the coronavirus.
We're able to work with the researchers to produce an interactive map based on the aggregate data that provides a daily updated county-by-county map of the symptoms that people are experiencing across the country.
Now, how do you do that? Just curious, Mark Zuckerberg, because I worry about certain situations like my privacy. You're hearing more and more that states are trying to say, hey, we're going to be giving our first responders information. We won't be giving names, but we'll be giving addresses and descriptions of people that may have tested positive for the coronavirus. Excuse me? What? Are you nuts? What about HIPAA? What about we want our first responders to be protected? Well, they kind of know that the job they're in, that there is an inherent risk on all kinds of things. You ever watch Live PD? What's the first thing they ask when they go to search somebody? Do you have anything that's going to poke me? Well, I'm just saying. So you're going to out people that have the coronavirus?
Carnegie Mellon produces an aggregate report that doesn't include anyone's individual response. It's a really important part of this program that Facebook is helping to distribute the survey, but it's Carnegie Mellon's survey.
Okay. Carnegie Mellon survey. I just still feel like nobody wants you to know all their problems, right? And part of this is us. We've opted in to everything. We have opted in to no privacy in some ways. And the little privacy we do have, some people, like myself, want to hold on to. And if you test positive or something, it doesn't matter what it is, whether you've got hepatitis or HIV or something, the Ebola virus, you should, want to be able to keep it to yourself. Some people may say, hey, if I'm trying something here, I want people to recognize it. That's fine if you're opting into it. But it's the everybody else scenario, and Facebook has not had a great track record in privacy. I think we all knew that. This is interesting, though, as they track some of this stuff.
Some journalists have reported, for example, that ski resorts might have been playing an early role in the spread of COVID. We do see in the maps that some of the counties around where there are prominent ski resorts have a lifted level of people experiencing symptoms.
Why is that? Well, they travel. That's a big thing, right? When you have an opportunity to travel places and you travel all over, you usually run in certain arenas where other people don't run into, and then you end up getting it. Close proximity, things of that nature. But how real is that? I don't know. Because I look at California, and I think, is what they're saying real? Because they're talking about the fact that they might have had it like way early, like last year kind of early. We're never going to know the real truth, no matter how far we go, no matter how deep we probe. We're not going to know exactly how it went. And there's all kinds of conspiracy theories. China's telling everybody this came from America. But the world knows that it came from China. Do I think it's one of those things? Because I'll get at least 4 or 5 of those. I got about 20 of them over the weekend. We're looking at it. It came from a lab. It came from this. If it came from a lab, which is plausible, probably not likely. If it did come from the lab, it was because they were doing testing on it and somebody, Barney Fife-esque, allowed it to get out. Probably got themselves sick and then spread it that way. Don't think it was done in such a way as to be some sort of weapon. But we know exactly where it's come from. We do. And the question's going to be, once this is all kind of calmed down and we get ourselves back into a flow, which could be 6 months or a year, is what does the world do when it comes to China? And how do we look at them and how do we hold them accountable without causing a potential Cold War? 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. It's the Chad Benson Show.
This is the Chad Benson Show. Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
That's just delusional to be making statements like that. We have been fighting every day for PPE, and we've got some supplies now coming in. But for the national level to say that we have what we need, and really to have no guidance to the state levels, is just irresponsible.
Just irresponsible, Governor Northam there. Virginia. Here's something, though, that's very interesting. Have you noticed that the Democratic states really want the federal government to lead? A lot of Republican states kind of want to be left to their own. And if you overstep in some of the Democratic states, they'll no, you stay away from us. But we want you to lead. It's interesting. Look, there's no doubt in my mind that we have failed in a lot of ways. What has saved us from being an unmitigated disaster is the fact that we need to shout out to our health care. how horrible our healthcare is, how we fall behind to the rest of the world. Go look at our numbers compared to a lot of other places. And you're like, wow, we are doing all right. We are doing all right. About 2% if you go by the cases and the deaths. It's about 2%. Now, if you were to probably double those cases, which is, I think, where we're at least known cases, we're more like 1%. That's pretty good. I think same thing in places like Italy. You'll get a different view on the mortality rate of this. But the reality is our healthcare system, which is much maligned, especially by the likes of the Bernie Sanders, wing of the Democratic parties. Everybody needs this. We should all have this, that, the other. And look how far behind we are to everybody else. But if you go and look, they are doing it. They are sacrificing. They're working their ass off. They're doing so many things that are incredible. And when you look at our much maligned system, even though there's been plenty of issues, we've dropped the ball in several different places, from testing to a few other things, we have, for all intents and purposes, done a bang-up job. And I think we need to remind ourselves at how good we have done. 323-538-2423, at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program as well. Love hearing from every single one of you. Now the question becomes, when? When can people get back out there and start working? When can people get back out there and start doing the things that they need to do to actually move forward? That nobody knows. That's the reality of it. Nobody knows. Dr. Fauci.
If you jump the gun and go into a situation where you have a big spike, you're going to set yourself back. So as painful as it is to go by the careful guidelines of gradually phasing into a reopening, it's going to backfire.
And that's a possibility. And one of the things is, they broke it down last week, which I thought that Dr. Birx did a good thing when she broke down her phases. One thing, though, that has not been uniform is, first of all, how long do you have to be into these 2 weeks of phases? Is it a cumulative effect, meaning if last week we tested positive for 1,000, this week we test, positive for only 800, and next week we test positive for 700? Or does it mean if one day we test positive for 50, the next day it's 51, we got to start back at zero? And the other thing that's, I think, a very real question that's not being answered, what happens when we emerge from this and there's a spike? One thing we can't do is, and I've said, we've got to burn the boats, right? People talk about, Alexander the Great. He would burn the boats, making sure that, hey, we're doing this, right? We don't, there is no plan B. Plan B is gone. We've burned the boats, so there is no retreat. We're going forward. Is that the attitude we're going to take? Or are we going to go, there's a spike, everybody run inside the house? Oh, there's a spike, everybody goes inside the house. Can our economy take that? Can our economy take, especially because at this moment, we're not quite there when it comes to a real therapeutic treatment. And we're probably 16 to 18 months away from a vaccine. Now, we could get to the vaccine sooner, but like the vaccine with the flu, it's not going to be 100% surefire. You're going to force everybody to take it. Therapeutic-wise, that's the next level we need to get to, where I think all bets are off at that point in time. If we find a reliable therapeutic way to treat this, we just go back to a normal way of life. Whatever that looks like. I still think there's going to be really some residual effects for the way that we live for the foreseeable future. People are going to still social distance in certain ways. I think people are still going to be the germs are going to be top of the mind. It's going to take a while for people to get past that. There's a psychological effect that is very real. But what does that look like? What does the therapeutic thing look like? There's a few different companies out there that have been testing. The hydrochloroquine we'll find out the real results here in the coming days. But there is one from Gilead that is supposed to be doing really well. It's a sample size, but it's showing real good effects on people to get them through it. A therapeutic thing is what you have when you have the flu. You have Z-Pak. You have erythromycin. This is where you would take a Z-Pak. You go, doc, I got the flu. He's like, she's like, here, take this. And you go and you overcome that in a much quicker way. Even though people go out and get a vaccine, it's not 100% foolproof. We need to get to that point. I think once we get to that point, where we've got a solid treatment that takes that mortality rate down to like 0.5% or 0.3%, where we're close to the flu, then we just live our lives. But if this thing's seasonal and we don't have anything, at some point in time, you even have to look at Dr. Fauci and say, here's the deal, Dr. Fauci. We can't run in every 6 to 8 weeks when we see a spike in certain areas. And one of the things they said last week, what they're going to look for, if it's to be seasonal, is times of the year that the flu is not prevalent, say August, September, July, somewhere, where it's really warm. If we see a spike in respiratory infections in emergency rooms and urgent cares, we're going to think to ourselves, we need to start testing for this because we could see another spike. If we go, say, June 1st, the majority of the country goes back to some sort of normal way of life, and then August, there's a spike, we can't stop things down. Businesses cannot do that and sustain. So what do we do? That's the thing I want answered. What do we do? Because at some point, no matter who the president would be, a Democrat or Republican, you have to say to yourself, all right, here's the way we're going to do this. Everybody's got a real issue, an underlying issue. You need to stay at home. You need to shelter in place, and you need to be quarantined to the point where nobody can get, like you have a hermetically sealed bubble. Nobody can get to you. Your food, everything is going to, that's what we need to do. Everybody else, you're going to have to pick up and move on, and you're going to have to take a chance. And I think most people, most Americans are willing to do that. I think they're giving this a try because they think it's the right thing to do. But I also think you got a breaking point, and wherever that breaking point is, you're going to search for it. And I'll tell you what, the second breaking point is going to come a lot quicker if you tell everybody you got to shut down again. You're going to get a lot of people go, you know what? We're going to have a hard pass on that. Already did that once. Can't afford to do it again. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program as well. And big companies, little companies, they're all having real issues.
For over 100 years, the very name has exemplified luxury.
It doesn't matter what you wear, as long as it's from Neiman Marcus.
But now industry insiders say the iconic retailer is headed into bankruptcy court after missing payments on some of its billions in debt last week. A bankruptcy filing could mean a financial reorganization, or it could attract potential buyers of the company or the assets of Neiman Marcus.
Yeah, that's going to happen. JCPenney, I don't think, or Sears are going to make it through this. Macy's has already laid off how many? And they've said when we hire, it's going to be nowhere near what we've laid off. You're going to find a lot of large stores are going to go out of business. Opportunities are going to be there for people to grab certain situations where they can, set up a little something and go in and gobble it up and maybe keep the name but change the way things are done. But big box retailers, a few will survive, but don't be surprised if names like JCPenney, Sears, Neiman Marcus, Macy's reorganize themselves. And if they come back at all, it will be a totally different thing. And I don't know if Sears or JCPenney's will make it through. Macy's probably will, but at half of what they once were. And things like Neiman Marcus, don't know. I doubt it. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You tweet at me, you can text the program. Wounded Paw Project. So when Ernesto started Wounded Paw Project, it was really interesting. He started it because he was in a situation where he was wounded. He was depressed. He was struggling with PTSD. He adopted a dog from a shelter named Daisy, changed his life. He thought, you know what? I could do this for other veterans. Since then, he's expanded it to veterans, first responders, and their families. What they do is they transform shelter dogs into service dogs for them, and it is incredible. Service dogs do all kinds of things. Some of them, it's to provide the comfort and truly a dog that helps them with PTSD. And for others, it's to provide people who need help physically because they've been wounded in action. Now, you can help today. You turn your extra car, truck, RV, even a boat into a vehicle for change. On top of that, you can donate at smile.amazon.com, set your supporting group to Wounded Paw Project, or they take cash as well. You can find out everything they're doing at woundedpawproject.org or call 844-678-4PAW, 844-678-4729 or woundedpawproject.org, woundedpawproject.org. Chad Benson Show.
No fake outrage here, just the real thing. The Chad Benson Show.
Phase 3 is essentially returning to our new normal, continuing the good hygiene practices, continuing the respect for spaces between individuals, because we know that we still have an issue with asymptomatic spread.
Dr. Birx last week, phase 3. It's funny, like, people were gross and they didn't wash their hands before. I said, well, some people probably didn't, but like, I washed my hands, but never this month. I didn't go from one bathroom through a door into a kitchen to wash my hands into another door where I had to put some sort of, like, you know, they've got bacterial things that you can squirt everywhere into another door. Like, you wash your hands just like, I don't think I washed my hands enough today. Well, how many times you do it? Well, I can't. All I have is bone, but I don't know if I've done it enough. How long can it stay on bone? I don't know. So that's phase 3. What about, dare I say, phase 4? There will be a phase 4. And just like phases, you've got phases of the stimulus, whatever that looks like. So phase 4 for real world is us living our lives pre-coronavirus. Pre-coronavirus, us living our life, not a new normal. I like that Trump said that last week. The new normal. He's like, no, I want to go back to normal. If there's 110,000 people in a crowd to watch Bama or Michigan play football, I want that to be the normal, what it was, not 50,000. If a person has a restaurant and he's got 150 tables, I want him to have 150 tables, not 60 tables. That's not what we should be aiming for. And he's right. But we have to get to that point, and that is going to take a while, and people are going to be hurting along the way, and they need stuff.
Lawmakers and the Trump administration are signaling they are closing in on a deal on a $400 billion stimulus package.
Which sounds great, and they get it done, and that's great, and everybody will get a little bit of this and a little bit of that, and yay, so that everybody celebrates that got did. Here's the thing. At the end of the day, though, if you can't open up, how long does that work? How many times can you go back to the well? Because restaurant people are saying, it ain't enough.
Little guys really do need help. And we're already hearing specifically from the restaurants who say, look, this program doesn't even work that well for us. And we're going to need probably $1 trillion. We're not talking about, this amount. You guys are maybe $600 billion, ultimately $650 billion. We're probably going to need like $1 trillion. And that's just one part of the industry, one part of small businesses we're talking about.
And they're already clamoring. It's moved into phase 4 and they got everything. Oh my, it's not enough. Because all you're doing is paying them to stay on the sidelines. Eventually, though, you're going to say, we're going to have to get back to work. And when the longer we go, the less people are going to have financially to go out and spend, the less that they have to spend. What happens at that point in time? The economy slows down on its own. The foundation may be good, but left unchecked, left to rot away, eventually it's going to start to crack. And the longer we go, especially with uncertainty, the less people are going to have money to spend. The less money to spend, the tougher it is to get back on your feet. So no matter how much you're giving them, If when you say, finally, we can open up, but half the people in the country are in dire financial straits and have no money to spend, and the other half is still uncertain of where this thing's going to go and if it's going to pop up again, so they're holding on to their money, then what do you have? You have nobody spending money. And the little guy is starting to realize that, maybe, just maybe, me throwing more money at this over and over and over again to try to keep it alive with no real end in sight may not be the smart financial thing. And while we've seen the big companies lay off people and the downsizing coming, I still think there's a lot of small and medium-sized businesses that have yet to really have that happen. They've cut some hours, and yes, some have gone through and laid people off, but their hopes were that this was going to be a helper, and no matter how much you give at this point in time, without an end in sight, eventually they're going to say, sorry, I can't do this anymore. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show, Twitter. You can tweet at me. You can text the program as well. It is the Chad Benson Show.
The Chad Benson Show.
Independent thoughts, independent life. This is Chad Benson.
In the sense that you've got two populist leaders in Boris Johnson and Donald Trump. And all the tricks that they used to become popular and to win elections and to lead their countries are now being tested in a very different way. It's still about partisan politics anymore. It's about plain war crisis leadership. And it's a very different thing. And what I've noticed with both Boris Johnson and with Donald Trump is an apparent inability to segue into being war leaders.
Yeah. Some people are that way. Some people are the leaders you need at the time you need them. You go back, and I love history. If you go and see what took place before Winston Churchill became the prime minister, against a lot of people's wishes, he became the prime minister. He led them through the war. At the height of his popularity, when they had a vote, he was voted out. Because he was seen as a person, as a wartime leader, as a crisis leader. Not a good time leader, but a person who in crisis is somebody you turn to. Trump has had more than a few mistakes. Everybody's going to. Don't care who you are. I can guarantee you, in a different dimension, right now, if Hillary Clinton was president, the Republicans would be hammering her for the testing going the way it is, or for going too early or going too late when it came to closing things down, or there would be something, because that's what we do. We find, especially in the world of politics, something we can just hammer down on. And Piers Morgan is right. Right now, both Boris Johnson and Trump are having some serious issues. And he talks, look, this right here is the briefings. And right now, one of the things trending on Twitter is, don't show Trump's briefings. There was one last week, Thursday, thought it was it was his best briefing. And the entire time on this entire crazy, insane coronavirus thing, since the day it popped up till now, it was his best moment. I think it was Wednesday or Thursday. Since then, and before then, it's been chaotic at best.
And Donald Trump in particular, I consider him to be a friend. But I've been watching these daily briefings with mounting horror because this is not what the president should be doing. The president of the United States right now is an incredibly important person in the world, and not least to Americans who are dying in their tens of thousands. And all that's required from the president is they've got to be calm, they've got to show authority, they have to be honest, they have to be accurate, entirely factual with what they're telling the people, and they have to have an ability to show empathy.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I have been very critical of Trump with his empathy. I don't think he shows empathy. I don't think he does. Like a lot of people think he just doesn't care. No, I think he cares. He's just not good at showing it. I could be wrong, right? And you could be wrong. Everything is about the economy is the way that a lot of people see. I want you guys to understand from a different viewpoint. Everything is about the economy is the way that everybody thinks about Trump. All he cares about is getting people back to work, the Dow Jones and all that. I don't think that's as real as it's made out to be, but he definitely comes across as not being very empathetic. Some people are like that. A lot of people are like that. Not very empathetic. They don't feel any empathy. They don't feel there's not that emotion. Some people on the other side come across as too empathetic, right? You could accuse Obama of being very empathetic, over empathetic at times. Paralysis by analysis. Deep thoughts. But there was no gut at times to do certain things. Trump comes across at times as very much a, black and white, kind of that old gruff dude. Everybody's got one in their family. It's your great uncle. It's your grandpa. Doesn't mean they don't care. That's just not the way that they come across. And it's tough because as a politician, you have to walk both lines, right? You got to straddle both areas. You've got to care about the people. But you've got to care about the economy and the people in the economy. Because coming out of this, we're going to need somebody who's going to help us take us back to where we were. And we know it's going to take a while. It's a very interesting thing. You have to have both. Some people do it really well. Some people are one. And, you find you look at Newsom in California, who everybody feels all he cares about is that he doesn't care if everybody's unemployed. I've said once we started to shut this thing down, at some point in time, people are going to start to push back. People are going to start to get angry. They're going to start to push back, and they're starting to do that. You're seeing protests everywhere, and that's only going to grow. Because there are people out there, some of which are out there fighting because they feel like their rights are being taken away from and everybody else is a sheeple, and there's a point to that. And some because they're looking at their livelihoods and it's going up in flames and they have no through no fault of their own, by the way. Not because they're bad business people, although some may be, but because this has thrown them a curveball which they're never going to be able to hit. They're at the plate with no bat and no chance to save themselves. And that's frustrating. So you've got some people who look at somebody who's really empathetic and thinks you're too emotional. You've got other people on the other side who say you're too cold. But as a leader, you've got to be able to walk both lines. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show's your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at us with all that going on. And that is true. Bill Maher is right. Yeah, that's right. Bill Maher's right. I like Bill Maher. I know a lot of you don't like him. I know a lot of you can't stand him. But he takes shots at everybody, which I think we need to. I try to take shots at everybody. If Trump does something wrong, I say Trump does something wrong. If Trump does something right, I'll say he's done something right. From the moment this has begun, especially CNN, with the Chris Cuomo crap, to everything, they've got the counter up there on how many have it, how many have died. Like it's like we're watching one of those Jerry Lewis telethons and the thing's getting ready to tick. And, whoa, it's been insane. And the only time you never hear them say, oh, yeah, I had it and I felt it was the sniffles and I moved on with my life. It's always the worst case scenario. And there's a reason for that.
So, look, if this insanity happens again, news sources have to rein it in. Everyone knows corona is no walk in the park because you literally can't walk in the park. But at some point, the daily drumbeat of depression and terror veers into panic porn. Enough with the life will never be the same headlines. Some are making comparisons to the apocalypse. The apocalypse? Really? Because most of us are sitting at home smoking delivery weed and binge watching a show about a gay zookeeper.
He's right. He's absolutely right. And as even the worst case scenarios, 98% of us are going to survive this. Even if everybody got it, which would be awful. 98% of us are going to come through the other side and survive this.
Another recent Times headline was, "It's terrifying. Millions more out of work." What it's terrifying doing in a headline? Granted, it's a quote, but who are they quoting? Trump? Fauci? Stephen King? No, they're quoting an event planner in North Hollywood. How about this? Just tell me millions are out of work without the flashlight under the chin, and I'll decide how I feel about it.
Yeah, that's not what it's about anymore. It's not what it's about. If it bleeds, it leads. They're fighting New York Times, LA Times, every single newspaper, and the newspaper industry is getting clobbered. There are very few newspapers that are going to survive this. There really isn't any. LA Times, New York Times will probably come through this thing somewhat okay. But I've got several friends in the newspaper industry who have been blown out or are now working on a per-click basis. That they're only getting paid based on the clicks and the number of clicks they get. So what do? You make it good.
The media also seems obsessed with finding young people who've died of COVID-19. The Washington Post says there's 759 under 50 years old. Horrible, of course. Then I looked up how many under 50 died of the flu last year. Almost 3,000. So all this misery from distancing did some good. Can I be happy about that?
No, you can't. You're not allowed to. And it's the funniest thing. And Bill Maher's right. I saw a great meme yesterday about a guy who got run over by a steamroller. Obviously, it's fake. And then they asked, did he die from the coronavirus? Like, no, well, we don't care. And that's kind of what it is. Heart attacks and strokes are down. Why? Because less are happening? No, because people are afraid to bother their doctor. Are you kidding me? CNN's putting on things like in memory of the people we've lost during the coronavirus. Are you kidding me? 1,700 people a day die from heart disease, 1,600 from cancer. And you're putting up in memory of? Are we going to have a plaque somewhere? Is that going to happen? I feel like it is. And when we reopen, are we going to make it a national holiday?
Death is terrible, of course, no matter how it comes. I'm against it, and I don't care who knows it. But giving a proper perspective isn't a cover-up of the truth. It is the truth. Sudden, dramatic deaths like plane crashes, shark attacks, tornadoes, mass shootings, terrorism, awful as they are, kill far less than seasonal flu or even hospital-acquired infections may very well kill more than coronavirus. 99,000 of them last year. 50,000 die of nephritis every year. I don't even know what that is.
But it doesn't matter because it's not the coronavirus. And every time somebody dies now, it's because of the coronavirus, or there has to be headlines. Was not a part of the coronavirus, did not die from that, was hit by a bus. Whatever. I mean, it's bizarre. But that's what it is. Panic porn. Because it elicits emotion from you, you pay more attention to it, and then you stir in your brain and in your head, and now being physically isolated, it makes it so that rabbit hole is easier to go down and that you think that it's a death sentence. There are people out there who believe that this is a death sentence. It is not a death sentence. For most people, it is no more than a cold or a bit of a flu. Will some suffer from it? Yes. 80,000 people died from the flu. But it's not the same. No, it's not the same. It's different. But most people, half of them, will never even know they had it. Some will have aches and pains. Some will have a cough. Some will have a fever. Some will have all three. Some will make it to the point where they have to go to the hospital, but they never get on the respirator, and some will. But the whole thought process of this is a death sentence is put out there because 24/7 on the news, all you hear is coronavirus, coronavirus, coronavirus. And yeah, it is the biggest story. But the way that the media, and people say, you're the media. No, their news. I'm a talking head. Totally different. Totally different things. And I want to do more journalistic, give you the facts and reality as opposed to what they're trying to do, which is get you to pay attention by terrifying you. 323-538-2423 at Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. You can tweet at me and text the program as well. Love hearing from every single one of you. Happy Monday, Chad Benson Show.
You go, boy.
This isn't about right or left. This is just about right and wrong.
Right you are, Chad. The Chad Benson Show.
The initial number was raised from the request from 250. Last I heard from the secretary, it was 310.
Yeah, but now we got a newfound raise of cash for small businesses. Larry Kudlow, listen to this.
The first one went like hotcakes, so the second one could go like hotcakes too. I don't know.
Like hotcakes. You didn't come up with some awesome product. You have people who are starving, and you're offering them a chance to keep themselves afloat. Like, hey, did you guys hear what we did? It's pretty awesome. A little tone deaf. Just saying. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Feel free to tweet at me. You can text the program as well. You can text the program. Love it when you do. NFL this week. They got the draft. It's going to be very interesting to see the way that this takes place. So you've got the draft coming on the 23rd and 24th. And it's going to be totally different than anything in the past. But they still have done certain things that have been interesting. And one of them is the Wonderlic test. If you don't know what the Wonderlic test is, it's a test that they take and they based somewhat of an intelligence, common sense kind of test. And Tua Tagovailoa, who could be one of the first 2 or 3 picks in the NFL draft, apparently he didn't do so awesome in the test.
There is football intelligence and there's book intelligence, and Tua clearly has the football intelligence that he needs. It's just one more factor that teams go through on their long list of items as they're analyzing each player. And it's no different with Tua and a Wonderlic. When you're as dissected as Tua is, you're going to look at every single little thing. But that 19 on the Wonderlic is not going to make or break him.
Yeah, he got a 19. Now, the Wonderlic test is a very interesting test. And a lot of times in certain situations, they want you to do not so well, right? And you're thinking, well, when? Well, as a quarterback, they want you to do good. As a lineman, they may not want you to do well because they don't want you to say, not really, into this. I don't want to smash my body into this. He got a 19. So average score is a 20 out of a possible 50. If you're in the 30s or 40s, you're doing okay. That's what they would like to see. But it's bizarre how they have you take some of these tests. So if you take a Wonderlic test, they ask you all kinds of weird questions. Because of the COVID-19 outbreak, they can't get and talk to players like they like to sit down and talk with players. really break them down. They schedule a visit, they go, they ask you all kinds of weird questions. That's where you get all that weird, you hear about stuff like, was your mom a prostitute? If you were abducted by aliens, do you think that would, make your life better? They ask all kinds of weird stuff. Why is that? Because they're going to hand you millions of dollars with no supervision, and your career's on the line. You kind of want to get a feel of what these people are doing. But at least this week we'll have something to talk about sports-wise that has absolutely nothing to do with not playing sports. 323-538-2423. At Chad Benson Show is your Twitter. Have a beautiful rest of your Monday. Take a deep breath. We will get through this. I promise you that. It's frustrating. I get it. Smile and laugh. Take a walk. Night-night, Jack.
This is the Chad Benson Show.